At sunset, the Bangkok sky burned orange and gold as the crowd at the local bus terminal grew restless. Street lights flickered to life, and the air buzzed with the sound of honking horns and murmuring voices. Amid the chaos, Keanu Reeves stood quietly beside his wife and young daughter, their gentle presence a calm contrast to the noise around them. They had just approached the bus when the bus manager, a tall man in a Navy uniform with a hard face and furrowed brow, stepped in front of them. His voice rose sharply above the crowd. "You! Not here! This bus is not for tourists! Move away!" he barked, waving his arm dismissively. Passengers nearby turned to watch. The tension in the air thickened. Keanu's daughter, clutching her mother's hand, looked up in confusion, her small voice trembling. "Daddy! Why is he angry?" Keanu's wife knelt beside the girl, whispering softly, "It's okay, sweetheart. Some people forget how to be kind." Her tone was calm, but her eyes carried hurt. The manager took a step closer, his face flushed with irritation. He didn't recognize the man before him, the world-famous actor known for his grace and humility. To him, they were just another foreign family in his way. "I said move!" he shouted again, his voice echoing under the fading light. Keanu didn't respond with anger. Instead, he met the man's glare with quiet strength. His calmness was disarming, his voice steady but firm. "Sir," he said gently, "we're just trying to travel like everyone else. There's no need for disrespect." The crowd fell silent. Even the bus engine seemed to pause. The daughter's wide eyes darted between the two men, sensing something powerful, her father's refusal to meet anger with anger. For a long moment, the bus manager stood frozen, his authority challenged not by aggression, but by dignity. Behind them, the setting sun painted the scene in amber hues, as if nature itself wanted to soften the moment's harshness. Whispers spread through the bystanders, some recognizing Keanu, others simply moved by his composure. His wife reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining in quiet solidarity. It was a simple gesture, but it carried more strength than any argument could. As the bus door hissed open and passengers began to board, the manager's expression shifted. The anger in his eyes flickered into something else, shame, maybe even regret. He turned away, leaving the family standing in the glow of the Bangkok sunset, their grace untouched. In that instant, Keanu didn't just protect his family, he reminded everyone watching that respect doesn't demand power. It earns it through humility. The warm air of Bangkok wrapped around Keanu Reeves and his family the moment they stepped out of Suvarnabhumi Airport. The scent of lemongrass, incense, and something sweet from a nearby stall drifted through the evening breeze. Neon signs blinked in Thai script. Tuk-tuks buzzed like colorful insects, and the city hummed with a rhythm that felt alive. For Keanu, it was unlike anywhere he had ever been. A city where ancient spirit met modern chaos, and somehow both danced in harmony. Their first morning began with the sound of temple bells. The family had chosen to start their journey quietly, visiting Wat Arun, the Temple of Dawn. As the sun rose, it cast a golden glow over the white spires, each one adorned with delicate porcelain tiles that shimmered in the light. Keanu's daughter clutched his hand tightly as they climbed the temple steps, her laughter echoing against the stone. "Daddy, look! It's sparkling!" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. His wife smiled softly, adjusting her scarf as she looked up at the towering pagoda. "It feels like time stops here," she whispered. Keanu nodded, feeling an unfamiliar peace settle over him. For years he had lived in a world of flashing cameras and loud premieres, but here, in the quiet hum of chanting monks and the soft rustle of river winds, he felt invisible, free, human. Later that day, they wandered through the Chatuchak weekend market, where endless rows of stalls stretched beneath corrugated roofs. The air was thick with the aroma of grilled satay, mango sticky rice, and coconut ice cream. Vendors called out cheerfully, their smiles genuine, their energy contagious. His wife tried on a silk scarf in deep crimson, and his daughter giggled as she sampled sweet tamarind candies handed to her by a kind old woman. Keanu stood a few steps back, watching his family, laughing, tasting, exploring, and felt a swell of gratitude. For once, he wasn't the man in front of the camera. He was simply a husband and a father, blending into the crowd, sharing life's simplest joys. As evening fell, they found themselves near the Chao Phraya River, where lanterns floated like tiny stars on the water. Street musicians played soft Thai melodies as locals and tourists mingled under the glowing lights. The family sat together on a wooden bench, sipping iced tea and watching boats drift past. The river shimmered like liquid gold under the moonlight. His daughter rested her head on his arm. "Daddy, I don't ever want to leave," she murmured sleepily. Keanu smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That's the beauty of places like this," he said quietly. "They stay with you, even when you go." In that peaceful moment, surrounded by the heartbeat of Bangkok, the family felt something deeper than sightseeing, a connection to the world, to each other, and to the silent truth that happiness often hides in the simplest of places. The plane wheels touched down with a soft thud, and a wave of humid air greeted Keanu Reeves and his family as they stepped into the heart of Thailand, Bangkok, the city of angels. It was early afternoon, and the sky glowed with a soft haze that turned every ray of sunlight into gold. The city pulsed with life, tuk-tuks weaving through traffic, street vendors calling out in cheerful Thai, and the faint scent of jasmine and grilled spices drifting through the air. Keanu's daughter pressed her face to the car window as they drove from the airport, her eyes wide with awe. "It's so colorful here, Daddy," she said, pointing to the streets lined with food stalls and temples. His wife smiled, holding his hand as they watched the city pass by. Monks in saffron robes walking barefoot, children laughing beside street fountains, and the majestic spires of ancient temples rising above modern skyscrapers. Their first stop was Wat Phra Kayu, the temple of the Emerald Buddha, glowing like a jewel in the heart of the city. The sound of bells and chanting filled the air as they stepped barefoot into the sacred grounds. Keanu's daughter looked up at the towering golden stupas and whispered, "It's like a palace for the stars." Her voice was filled with pure wonder. His wife adjusted her scarf respectfully, the silk catching the sunlight. Keanu felt a deep calm wash over him, a rare peace he hadn't known in years. Later that afternoon, they boarded a small boat along the Chao Phraya River, the lifeblood of Bangkok. As the boat glided across the water, they passed floating houses, old wooden piers, and smiling locals waving from the banks. The breeze carried the scent of lotus flowers and incense. Keanu leaned back, his arm around his wife, watching their daughter toss crumbs to the fish below. It was a simple moment, yet it felt infinite. When night fell, the family ventured into the Chatuchak night market, a sprawling maze of color and sound. Lanterns swayed above narrow aisles packed with people, locals bargaining cheerfully, tourists snapping photos, and vendors grilling skewers of meat that sizzled and smoked in the warm air. His wife tried on handmade jewelry. His daughter devoured coconut ice cream served in a hollowed shell. And Keanu, El Camera slung over his shoulder, smiled quietly, capturing snapshots of joy instead of fame. "Try this," a vendor offered, handing him a skewer of grilled chicken soaked in sweet chili sauce. Keanu thanked him with a bow, the spice hitting his tongue. Both fiery and delicious, his wife laughed at his reaction, eyes sparkling. "Not used to that kick, huh?" she teased, as they walked hand in hand through the lively market, the lights reflected in their eyes like stars. Bangkok wasn't just a destination, it was a reminder that the world was vast, kind, and endlessly beautiful. Amid temples, rivers, and laughter, Keanu and his family weren't just exploring a city, they were rediscovering the joy of being alive together. The morning sun shimmered above the bustling streets of Bangkok, painting the city in warm gold. Keanu Reeves and his family, dressed casually and smiling, had spent the day exploring temples and markets. As dusk approached, they decided to experience the city like locals, by taking a public bus through the heart of town. It seemed simple enough. a way to see Bangkok from a different angle, to feel its heartbeat more closely. The bus stop buzzed with life, schoolchildren laughing, elderly vendors chatting softly, and tourists huddled over maps. The smell of roasted peanuts and fried noodles filled the air. Keanu's daughter held her mother's hand tightly, her tiny backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "I want to sit by the window," she said, excitement glowing in her eyes. When the bus arrived, it hissed to a halt, and the crowd surged forward. Keanu guided his wife and daughter through the line, quietly patient as always. But as they stepped aboard, the bus manager, a large man in a dark blue uniform, frowned and barked something in Thai. The tone was unmistakable, irritation. He pointed toward the exit. Keanu's wife hesitated, unsure. "We're just trying to buy tickets," she said kindly. The manager waved his hand dismissively. No, not here. Tourists take taxi, not bus." His English was broken but sharp. The other passengers turned to look, some curious, others uncomfortable. Keanu's daughter clutched her mother's arm. "Mommy, did we do something wrong?" she whispered. Her voice trembled. Keanu stepped forward slightly, his calm presence commanding quiet without force. "Sir," he said gently, "we just want to ride the bus. We'll pay like everyone else." But the manager wasn't listening. He scoffed, shaking his head. "No! Go! You slow down, people. This not for you." His words stung, not because of their meaning, but because of the disdain behind them. The atmosphere thickened. Passengers looked away, unwilling to get involved. A young woman sitting nearby whispered softly, "He doesn't know who you are." Keanu gave a small smile. "That's okay," he replied. "He doesn't need to." His wife's eyes glistened, a mix of embarrassment and hurt. She pulled their daughter close as the manager turned his back, motioning for them to leave. For a brief moment, anger flickered across Keanu's face. Breath and nodded calmly. "Come on," he said softly to his wife. "Let's not argue. Some lessons don't need shouting." They stepped off the bus as the doors closed behind them with a hiss. The engine roared, and the vehicle pulled away, leaving a cloud of exhaust in its wake. The little girl looked up, eyes confused. "Why was he so mean, Daddy?" What the bus manager didn't know was that his anger had created more than discomfort. It had tested their patience, strengthened their unity, and planted the seed for a moment of grace that would later change everything. The bus doors slammed shut, leaving behind a cloud of dust and noise. The sting of the bus manager's harsh words still lingered in the humid. "Bangkok Air." Keanu Reeves stood in silence for a moment, his wife holding their daughter close. The child's eyes shimmered with confusion and hurt. Too young to understand why someone would speak to them that way. The city moved on around them, the chatter of vendors, the honking of cars, the scent of grilled food in the distance. But for that brief moment, time seemed to slow. Keanu exhaled softly, the frustration visible in his eyes, but his voice, when he finally spoke, was gentle. "Let's take a walk," he said, placing a hand on his wife's shoulder. "We'll find another way." His tone wasn't angry, just calm, steady and full of quiet strength. They began walking down the street, the orange glow of the setting sun painting their path. The little girl's small hand was wrapped tightly in her father's, her steps slow and uncertain. "Daddy," she asked in a trembling voice, "why didn't you shout back at him?" "He was mean." Keanu knelt to meet her gaze. "Because shouting doesn't make people listen, sweetheart," he said softly. "Sometimes the best way to teach kindness is to show it, even when it's not given to you." His words were simple, but the weight of them sank deep into her young heart. His wife smiled faintly, her earlier hurt melting into admiration. "You always find peace, even when there's none around," she said, her voice tender. "That's why I fell in love with you." Keanu gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, and for a moment the chaos of Bangkok faded into the background. As they walked further, a sound of hurried footsteps echoed behind them. When they turned, they saw a few of the bus passengers approaching. An elderly woman, a young man with a backpack, and a mother carrying her baby. They looked remorseful. One of them, the young man, spoke first. We saw what happened. That wasn't right, he said hesitantly. You didn't deserve that. Keanu smiled kindly. Thank you, he replied. We're fine. I just hope he learns. Someday that respect costs nothing. His words carried no bitterness, only grace. The elderly woman reached out, placing her hand over her heart. You have good spirit, she said in broken English. You and your family, very strong. Keanu bowed slightly in gratitude, his humility touching everyone present. By the time they hailed another bus, the tension of the moment had transformed into something else, quiet admiration from strangers who had witnessed true composure. As they boarded, even the new bus driver smiled warmly, helping them find seats. The passengers nodded respectfully, whispering words of support in Thai. As the family rode off into the Bangkok night, their calm dignity left a lasting echo among those who had seen the incident. A reminder that real strength doesn't come from power or fame, but from grace under pressure and love that never wavers. The sun was beginning to dip below the Bangkok skyline, painting the city in shades of gold and crimson. The evening air was softer now, cooler, quieter, almost reflective. Keanu Reeves and his family walked along the riverbank after their long day, the lights from passing boats shimmering on the water like scattered stars. The earlier incident with the bus manager still lingered in their minds, but none of them spoke about it. They didn't need to. Sometimes silence carried more meaning than words. As they reached a small riverside cafe, Keanu's wife suggested they sit and rest. They ordered tea and mango smoothies, the kind of small comfort that soothed away the sting of an unpleasant moment. Their daughter, cheerful once again, giggled as she fed crumbs to a stray cat wandering near their table. Watching her laugh, Keanu smiled softly. She bounces back faster than we do, he said. His wife chuckled. She learned that from you. Just as they began to relax, a shadow appeared by the entrance of the cafe. It was the bus manager. His uniform was slightly wrinkled, his posture uncertain. For a moment he stood frozen, as if unsure whether he should approach. His eyes were downcast, heavy with regret. Keanu noticed him first. Instead of tension, his expression was calm, open. He stood and took a small step forward. Hello again, he said quietly. The man hesitated, then bowed his head. Sir, I am very sorry, he said in a shaky voice. I was wrong. I didn't mean to be cruel. I thought you were just another tourist making trouble. His English broke with emotion. But you were kind. You didn't shout. You just walked away. That was not what I expected. Keanu's wife glanced at her husband, her eyes softening. Their daughter tilted her head, sensing something important was happening. Keanu placed a hand gently on the man's shoulder. We all have hard days, he said. What matters is that you're here now. The bus manager looked up, his eyes glistening. You're calm. It made me think, he confessed. I see so many angry people every day. But your family wishes you stayed peaceful. I want to be like that. Keanu smiled, the kind of smile that disarmed even the hardest of hearts. We're all learning, he said kindly. Every day gives us another chance to do better. The man nodded deeply, then crouched down to meet the little girl's eyes. I am sorry, little one, he said softly. I was rude to your family. She looked at him curiously, then smiled. It's okay, she said simply. Mommy says everyone can change if they want to. The manager's eyes filled with tears. He bowed once more before leaving. His shoulders lighter, his step slower but steadier. As he disappeared into the glowing streets, Keanu and his wife exchanged a quiet glance. No words, just understanding. The hurt had turned into something beautiful, forgiveness. And beneath the golden Bangkok sky, a stranger's heart had changed forever. The final morning in Bangkok arrived wrapped in soft sunlight and the gentle hum of a city already alive with motion. Outside their hotel balcony, the golden roofs of temples shimmered like jewels beneath a sky brushed with pink and blue. The distant echo of chanting monks mixed with the call of birds, creating a harmony that felt almost spiritual. Keanu Reeves stood quietly, a cup of coffee in hand, watching the world awaken. His wife joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. It feels like we've been here longer than a few days, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Time moves differently when it's filled with meaning. Their daughter appeared beside them in her pajamas, hair tousled, clutching her stuffed toy. "Are we leaving today?" she asked, sleepy-eyed. "Yes, sweetheart," her mother said softly. "But we'll take Bangkok with us. Here." She tapped her chest over her heart. After breakfast, they decided to take one last walk along the Chao Phraya River, where it had all begun, the city's pulse running strong beside the water. The streets were alive with their usual rhythm. Monks collecting morning alms, vendors setting up food carts, and children laughing as they chased pigeons through temple courtyards. Yet everything felt slower now, more sacred, as if the family was seeing it all for the first time again. As they strolled, Keanu spotted a familiar face among the crowd, the bus manager from days before. This time, his posture was upright, his expression calm and kind. When their eyes met, he smiled and waved hesitantly. Keanu returned the gesture, his smile warm and genuine. The man pressed his palms together in a respectful Y, the traditional Thai greeting of peace, before disappearing into the crowd. His wife turned to him with quiet admiration. "You changed something in him," she said. Keanu shook his head. "No," he replied. "He changed himself. We just gave him the chance." They continued walking, stopping to buy fresh coconut water from a vendor by the river. The woman handed the drink to their daughter and said in broken English, "Your family very kind. I saw on bus that day. You good people." Keanu looked surprised, but smiled humbly. "Thank you," he said, bowing slightly. In that moment, he realized that the events of the trip had rippled farther than he could have imagined. One small act of grace had touched hearts beyond his own family. A reminder that kindness, even when unreturned, never fades into nothing. That evening, as the plane soared over the sparkling city lights, Keanu gazed out the window. The reflection of Bangkok shimmered below like a constellation of memories, temples glowing in gold, the river winding like a ribbon of silver, the laughter of strangers now etched in his heart. His daughter leaned against him, already asleep, while his wife traced her fingers over his hand. "You know," she whispered, "this trip wasn't about seeing new places. It was about finding new peace."